Make sure when we do this for the next 2 hours while drinking beer that you don't make any mistakes. Okay? Make sure you make no mistakes.
Could you? I was thinking about that. I was gardening today. I was like, dude, there's so many people that hate listen to our podcast. And one of them is one of our best friends.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see.
Hey, twist around. Now look, here's a house full of bees. You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Listen, let's get one thing straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Rode into town on a crippled horse. Got fired from a cattle drive. Up north, the ropes of the gallows went swinging in the breeze. All the wanted posters had pictures of me. I got my club 45 right by my side. Oh, I'm the California kid. I was quite prepared to die. Tied what was left of my horse to a hitch. Walked into a saloon they called the Busted Bitch. I ordered up a whiskey. He asked me for my bread. I paid him 2 bits and then I pumped him full of lead. I got my Colt 45 right by my side. Oh, I'm the California kid out here, quite prepared to die.
I think some apologies are in order.
Hey, lady,
Who would that be?
Beet farmers.
Ah, wow. Dang, I haven't heard them in, I think, since like high school.
Kind of a strange band.
Yeah, I think they were lumped into kind of the punk genre back then because I used to see them
Yeah.
in Thrasher magazine back in the day.
They played a lot, I think, with Southern Culture on the Skids back in the day. They were
see that
kinda,
working.
Yeah, right? Like kind of a weird, like genre-proof band.
They were a little bit parody-esque with the Western kind of thing.
Yeah.
I believe.
A little bit,
Because
yeah.
I think they came from the punk scene. Mm-hmm. I was listening just from like a production standpoint. I was wondering if the guy that produces, because that song has some cool production into it. You know, it's got a very unique sound, and that was obviously done intentionally. I was listening to that snare sound. I was like, I wonder if a producer said, like, you know, with the whole kind of thing that you guys got going, we need to make that snare almost sound like resemble the sound of a cracking whip, which is what it kind of sounds like, huh?
Yeah. Interesting.
I was like, that is an interesting snare sound. I mean, that was obviously done intentionally.
Having, I would never have known this before. I was in a band with a really good drummer. But apparently, actually, I was in the same band with 2 really good drummers. Mm-hmm. Only one of them played the drums in our band. The other one is one of those guys that could play he could play every instrument better than everybody else.
Oh, I hate those people.
Just an actual musician.
Here, give me your drum set. I'll show you the beat I'm thinking of. You're like, oh, fucking asshole.
Well, luckily, our actual drummer, Will, was, you know, he's one of the best.
He is a great drummer.
Best drummers, yeah.
And he has great taste in music, too.
Yeah. Hell of a dancer.
Not too, pretty easy on the eyes, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Especially as he's gotten older.
I'd like to play drums with him someday. You know what I'm saying?
Wouldn't you? Anyways, the snare drum, turns out, is like the most important drum when it comes to sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's like it's the only one that, it seems to me like it's the only one that matters. Like we focus so much time on the actual sound of the snare. He owns like 4 snares. The right snare was always like the thing. The other drums could go fuck themselves. It seemed like the snare drum is the only
That is absolutely
signature sound, right?
That's absolutely true. 2 things is there are albums I love, but the snare sound is terrible. I was like, I can't listen. Like that's what I listen to is the snare sound because I don't know. Like your average listener is usually listening to the vocal melody. I'm always listening to the drums, and I have recorded. I can think of 4 albums at this point, probably more than that, where the producer flew in from somewhere to record the album with a snare. That's all they brought. It's like, here's the snare that we're going to use for this album. Yeah. And you're like, the first time it happened, I'm all, that's weird. And this dude showed up with a snare. I mean, our drummer has a decent drum set. Turns out he didn't. And he was a terrible drummer too, by the way. And he put the snare on. I'm like, oh my God. Like, he flew in from Arizona, carried on a snare. I was like, I could see, okay, this is making sense right now.
It makes sense. It's like a gun going off in music every time you hit that snare. Right? It cuts through everything. So.
Or someone punching a trash can if you like Metallica's Saint Anger album. It's the worst snare sound ever made. So much so that a guy did a play along on YouTube to that album using an actual trash can, had it mic'd with a snare, big old studio setup and everything, and he did a playthrough on the album hitting a trash can.
Sound exactly the same.
Pretty much.
Couldn't distinguish the
Pretty
two.
much. I'm like, yeah, you're right in there, bud.
Yeah. Cool.
So I was thinking just today, as we are coming out of the world's longest episode, Blade Runner movie of just rain, and finally the sun kind of came out today. It looks like we don't have a lot of rain on the horizon, and that concludes my weather report.
I hope it never rains again.
But yeah, now that all of us are finally kicking, our SADS, our seasonal affective disorder, is a song came on. I was with my son. We were driving because I took him to boxing this morning, which, by the way, my son has been in. I don't know if he intuitively figured out that we're like not spanking people, but it seemed like Monday or Tuesday, because he was sick and we had to keep him home. Like, he was pretty sick. I'll give him that. But he, it's almost like, you guys don't spank, huh? Let's see if you really don't spank. And like, we got put to the test this week. So much so, like,
you're like,
I was
hand raised, like,
no. I told my wife, like, can we rethink this whole thing? Where I was like, I'm like questioning
the whole parenthood thing.
Yeah,
the return policy that we don't know.
Right. And then which put me in a funk, and I have been in a funk because it's like my jobs are on hold because it's raining, and just everything just has generally kind of sucked. And then I took him to boxing this morning. I got to roll and jump on the treadmill, and like instantly walked outside. The sun was shining. I was like, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And he turned into an instant angel, just like the best kid ever, because he got it out of his system. I got it out of my system. Like, everything it was like magic.
Yeah.
And then I met my wife for lunch. She goes, how you doing? Because she knows, like, I was pacing it around, like, with my fist clenched in the bedroom, like, oh my God, dude, like, I'm going insane right now. Like, and she goes, how you doing? I'm like, everything's fine. Like, it's going to be a good day. We're going to work in the garden today. Like, everything's nice. And then when I was driving to come here to meet you to record this, my son loves the country station. And so I flipped it on, and this song came on, and it was such a perfect song for that moment. And that made me start thinking about, we've talked about the concept of the summertime jam, which means, obviously, it varies from person to person, what that means. And so I started deconstructing in my mind, like, what really makes like a summertime jam, or summertime jams, which ends with a Z, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's
talking about the shorts that we used to wear?
No. It's a very specific thing, and so much so that it is a genre. And so play this. Turns out this is a new song by the guy Morgan Wallen. I'm going to play a clip of it and explain like why I thought this was a summertime jam. Got a groove.
Very major.
Very major. Uplifting.
Yep.
It's like good melody.
The only thing that's country about this is the twang in his voice.
It's either this groove or a hip hop beat these days. So
I can't tell them apart until the person starts singing.
This song is called One Thing at a Time. It's the new Morgan Wallen hit. So it's got all
about sobriety.
It's about how you can only quit one thing at a time. So I can quit drinking, I can quit you, I can't do both.
Right. One day at a time is an AA slogan.
Yeah.
One thing at a time.
I'm guessing...
Is this April that we're in right now?
So I started thinking about, like, what makes this a summertime jam? It's got a nice like uplifting groove, right? Mm-hmm. Good, just bass like locked in with the drums. It's laid back, you know. It's like not a little too rocking. It's just, you know what I mean. And then it's got the melody, right? Simple, like good chord progression. One thing that really stood out to me, because I started thinking about like, what are your ultimate summertime jam bands? Like, who's on the Mount Rushmore of the summertime jams? Mm-hmm. Would be Boston. I'd say probably Journey. Thin Lizzy is probably it's a tie for first with Thin Lizzy and Boston. I was like, okay, so what do those bands have in common? So particularly with Thin Lizzy and Boston, they have those laid back kind of grooves. It's like kind of rocking, you know, it's like midlife crisis rock and roll to a certain extent. But when you listen to it, it's like I don't really have to think about it. It's just like it's pleasant to hear. It's got enough like kind of good energy, you know what I mean? So you and your friends are hanging out in the backyard. Let's throw some stuff on the grill, have a good time. Another specific thing is they always have harmonized guitars, which is in this song. You can hear what the guitar is doing. It's got this constant harmony going on, which a band like Boston is really good at, but Thin Lizzy are the ultimate masters. So if you want to think of like what the pinnacle of that ideal is, would be Boys and Back in Town. The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy. It's like the ultimate summertime jam. It's got those constant like harmonized guitar melodies like throughout the entire song. It's got the hook, the chorus. We didn't get to the chorus in this song. Mm-hmm. And it just sent me down this rabbit hole of like, man, because you and I, living in San Francisco, would go surfing. Then this is, 20 years ago? Yeah. And we're constantly listening to Boston. Like that was our pre-surf music. Yeah. So much so that I don't know if you remember this, but in your old truck, your Ford Ranger, that we would drive to the beach to go surfing after work, sun's out, like, good day at work, like we're amped. Like now we're gonna go surf. We've probably already surfed twice that day already, but still we're super excited to go surf again because at that time our whole crew, you know, revolved around like what the tides were doing and when we're gonna surf.
We worked when the surf wasn't good.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were driving to the beach to go surf, and we were listening to Boston, and then we were like rocking out. And we start playing like air guitar and air organ on your dashboard. And we talked about like, dude, we need to make like a cardboard organ that like sits over.
Actual, glue it to my dashboard.
Yeah. And then you were on your steering wheel would be a fold out guitar neck. So when the solo came on, you'd like flip it out.
Exactly.
You could still.
Of course I remember that. Yes. I still think about that. I still want to do that in my truck. Do that in my brand new F-350. Hell yeah.
So,
dude, we used to, and Mike would I wish he was here right now because he would get in on that with us too. So yeah, we would play like the intro to Foreplay Long Time.
Right.
Like
which is one of the like most epic. Intros. We used to talk about like, dude, why is this song not in a surf video? Like you see like footage of dudes charging like Mavericks or something, and this song comes on, like it'd be insane. Like you just have chills.
Totally.
If you're us.
Yeah.
By the way. So this would be, oh, yes, there we go. So this is Boston on the Mount Rushmore of summertime jams.
Yeah. Just imagine someone paddling right now into Mavericks.
Slow motion, of course.
Yeah.
Sib, the drummer, remember his afro?
Yeah.
That dude had a mighty afro. Fucking mighty. How many times have we listened to that song like before we'd paddle out just to get all fucking amped?
To get amped.
Yes.
You had to, it was that, and then say a few prayers, and then leave a note under your seat, like in case you don't come back. Those big days.
I was thinking of that. I was listening to that Morgan Wallen song, right, which is a total. Now it's like a hit. It's People's like, well, you guys are just really into top 40 music. I'm like, I'm actually not. Like grindcore and death metal is my favorite stuff. But then when I hear like a good summertime jam, like I'm all in.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like, this is actually probably one of my favorite songs of all time. This is a band called Discordance Axis. They're from the East Coast. This came out early 2000s.
You're calling this a summertime jam?
No, not at all. Oh, what I'm trying to do is set the parameters. Like, okay, I'm running a wide berth here. So people say, like, would you just put it on the radio, like, and you're just into that thing? Like, no, this is what I usually listen to. But then when I hop in my truck and I hear that Morgan Wallen song, I'm like, this is a good song. This is perfect. Summertime jam. I can't put on discordance axis and invite my friends over for a barbecue. It's like, this is a little tense. Like, I'm not enjoying this. You know what I mean? Summertime Jam, like, everyone, no matter what they like, you know, what they listen to, can just like, I'm digging this. This is like, it's right for the moment.
Right.
Which I think is a defining characteristic of a Summertime Jam.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to make everyone at ease, which that song that you just played would not.
No, not at all. It puts me at ease, but I have ADHD. So
your brain is wired weird.
It's broken.
It also has to be like in those major chords, it just makes everyone feel happy.
Right.
Right. It's not a song about politics or how the world's fucked up or a sad song, a sad ballad. It's like, yes, we know all that shit's happening, but for today,
let's just
taking our shirts off and
turn on the grill.
We're gonna lather each other up in some sunscreen, and you know, it's gonna be a great day.
Make all the women folk leave just for an hour,
just for like 5 minutes.
All right, but that's not what we're really talking about. So yeah, that new Morgan Wallen song, which is, I think that is a solid Summertime Jam, because usually the Summertime Jam is all stuff that is relegated to, you know, late 70s, you know, through the 80s. Bryan Adams, Summer 69, good Summertime Jam song. Journey's Any Way You Want It, great summer jam.
Yeah. I think that for me,
yeah, because we talked about this earlier, so you
Summertime
have a
Jam
little bit
for
of a
me,
different spin on there.
Yeah. I have memories of songs that came out in the summertime.
Yeah.
And for the whole summer, you kept hearing it. And it's just ingrained as a summertime jam. I mean, it still has to check all those boxes.
Yeah.
But it also, to me, has to be, it doesn't have to be, but is usually in my memory also coincides with the summertime. Now, I wasn't alive long enough for Boston and Journey. I couldn't tell you if Peace of Mind came out in the summertime.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's a classic.
Right.
Summertime song in the vein of what you're talking about.
Oh, this is a perfect summertime jam. So you hear that guitar melody that's going over everything? That's a defining characteristic of a summertime jam. Switches to the major key right there.
Now if you're feeling kinda low about the dues you've been paying, future's coming much too soon.
Yeah.
Dude, how could you not be in a bad mood?
It's amazing. That song, that's my favorite Boston song.
It's like you hear that, you're like, Ukraine, you know what, we'll figure it out. Let's not stress about it, at least not today. Like, we're just going to hang out and just have a good time.
Yeah.
Summertime jam.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me come a little bit more current.
Okay.
For you right now. So I remember when this song came out, all summer long, it was the hit.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was a great song. There's some controversy around it. And actually, I'm not going to play the Meghan Trainor song, All About That Bass.
Please don't.
Because I know it'll drive you, make you get out of the room and leave the house. But that song,
not that I have any ill will towards the song. It's just what drives me nuts is just the corporate radio model. It's like, people like this, let's play it over and over and over. This is one of the few times I can handle anything on a job site. Like, most of the time, I don't bring a radio to work, and it's usually like the Concrete Crew, and they just blast mariachi music, you know, all day. I was like, that's fine. I can handle that. It doesn't really matter to me. And
I just thought of another song you're going to hate that would also qualify. No, keep going, though.
You're going a different direction with this.
Sorry. It's your fault. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're just in too good of a mood, I've noticed. My buddy was playing a radio station that played that All About That Bass song. I swear, dude, it came on like every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just walked over and I shut the radio off. What are you doing? I was like, dude, put on something. I can't handle this. I cannot handle hearing that song.
So that song was written with the intention of being the summertime hit.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a summertime jam because it's not like, because like you said, I mean, you can't just put it on and have it playing while you're barbecuing.
Right.
And not notice it, kind of.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
In a
exactly.
movie, right?
Exactly.
And that song just is so like flamboyantly gay or whatever that it will. It's just too over the top. It's too much, right? Okay. Maybe this song qualifies, but tell me what you think. as in either qualifies as a summertime jam or as a song that was released in the summertime and would be along the lines of All About That Bass.
Dude, if you play Baby Shark,
this is the last setup.
Everybody get up.
Oh.
These naked ladies in the video.
Is this, what's his name? Robin Thicke.
Son of
Alan Thicke from Growing Pains.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Really?
Yeah.
And Pharrell.
Maybe I'm going deaf. Maybe I'm going blind. Maybe I'm out of my mind. Okay, now
Anyways, I just remember that song kind of dominating the summer soundscape when it came out.
I can randomly Tourette style blurt out that, oh yeah, that's the son of Alan Thicke, who was on Growing Pains, who's Canadian. When's your mom's birthday? Fuck, I'd have to email. I'd have to text my stepdad and ask him about that.
Yeah.
Very jovial, a little bouncy. For me, in my mind, Summertime Jams is always kind of more classic rocky, I guess. But I see where you're going, as far as the sentiment goes.
I couldn't picture that song in my head, so to speak. I couldn't hear it until I just played it. And I don't think it wouldn't go on my album of Summertime Jams.
Yeah.
I mean, we also talked about, like, there's the obvious Summertime Jam that is a song about summer.
Yeah.
Like you said, Bryan Adams.
Summer 69, right. Several Boston songs.
That song could have come out in February.
Yeah. So if you listen to some of the Boston lyrics and you're just like, they made a, like, total dude hangout song about, like, dudes hanging out and just having, like, a good time. Which is...
I mean, that is the summertime theme, right?
Yeah.
Summertime Jam theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid if I don't play this song, we might get some hate mail.
Okay.
So I think this is the all-time summertime jam.
drums, please.
Right? I just see someone washing their car right now.
Yeah. Nice laid back beat. Good melody. Yep. Yeah. Very pleasant.
The background noise, the chatter in the background, the people kind of having fun and at a barbecue or whatnot. Like, I bet if you pulled that out, like if we were watching that VH1 Greatest Albums or whatever, and there's a guy sitting there at the soundboard with 7,000 tracks, and he's like, pull out the background noise. You'd be like, oh yeah, you're definitely missing something without that.
I'm going to start doing that because we have barbecues here all the time at party hour. And then I'm going to play over the Bluetooth speaker like the sound of like a raging party.
Yes.
You know, I only have like 12 people here. It's like, I wonder if they'll be like, this is a good time, man. This is a place.
God,
to
I'm
be.
having fun.
Place to be, obviously. Some like muffled music you can barely hear, like behind all the crowd chattering.
Yeah, it's just got to be like the sound of a much bigger and funner party than you're actually having.
Party.
God, this is a great party. Yeah, I'm loving myself.
You want to talk about that grotesque thing growing out of your knee?
Yeah, my hoof and mouth disease that I have on my leg. It's painful.
Yeah, that does not look like a good
Should
time.
I try to get it on the camera?
No, please don't.
I might lose a few subscribers. Yeah, I have a staph infection.
This is the second time you've had it.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had it the first time.
Yeah, that was kind of when I first started training.
Yeah.
This time is way worse. But I think that...
this is a bit of an omen because I came straight here from the gym after rolling and I haven't gotten the shower yet. So next episode, I'll probably have it too.
Most likely.
Yes.
Yeah. The being on the prednisone is apparently a immunosuppressant, so I got to be extra careful.
Right.
But I made it this far through all of this prednisone shit without getting anything.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm finally almost off of it, and of course, I get the infection. But the back of my legs are covered in wounds, basically from the liquid nitrogen treatment that I had for all these other little spots that were also related to the prednisone.
Damn, buddy, you are a hot mess.
I promise our listeners I will not be talking about prednisone ever again.
There's so many interesting side stories that have branched off from that as kind of the common through line.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you take a normal functioning, more or less normal person and give them a drug that completely alters their mental state and imbalances their emotions, you'll get interesting stories out of it. That's what I've learned.
And someday, I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but we will release the episode where you fucking fully lost your shit and fucking cleared the table and ran out and just destroyed everything in my backyard. And like one of the most admirable flip outs I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was
one for the books.
That was something else.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of prednisone left over, so we could probably run this experiment on
what we need to do is think of the person that we know that's already preemptively angry all the time and give it to them. Like, dude, take all these and let's see what happens. Then we'll take you out to the bars. Let's just see what happens.
Like Seth.
Yes. Seth Richardson. The joke being that we had when we all worked together, everyone had an anger nickname. Yours was Sid. Mine was Marty. And then we had a concrete guy who was a good dude, but one of the Boston dudes, one of the worst tempers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You see him lose his shit. You're like, okay, everyone out of the room now.
And so he found out about our nicknames. He's like, well, what's my angry nickname?
Like, it's Seth. Seth Richardson.
Why do you guys say that my angry nickname is Seth? No reason, dude. Don't worry about it. Have you? I think it's time for me to tell our listeners, put it out into the universe of my theory around the documents, the confidential documents found in Joe Biden's house.
Oh boy,
and how it relates to Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis.
Okay.
Did you have more to get to besides the summertime jams?
Yeah, I got something. I have something crazy dark, but I'm not feeling it today because I'm in a good mood. So I got something.
I got some dark shit too, but since we're in such a good summertime mood, the mood and the sun is finally shining outside, and we were just listening to Fresh Prince "Summertime." There's no way I can go to it, so I'm just going to go with this.
Okay,
it's a little bit silly, but hear me out.
Okay,
I might be onto something here. Okay, who would you say is a bigger threat?
Hold on a sec. I'm going to get me a beer.
Oh, shit.
Every time.
One day I'm going to learn.
Yep.
One day this war is going to end. So, who would you say is a bigger threat to the deep state?
To the deep state, okay.
Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Who resisted the state through COVID more aggressively?
Good point. Ron DeSantis.
Donald Trump.
Operation Warp Speed. Criticized anyone who didn't lock down.
Criticized Georgia for opening too early.
And Florida and Sweden.
Yep.
Yeah.
He talked about...
So by that metric, then it'd be Ron DeSantis.
Who's more likely to fall in line with taking people's guns away?
I don't know anything about Donald Trump's stance on guns.
All right. Dildo this real quick.
Okay.
Donald Trump, take away people's guns.
Okay.
All right. I believe it was in relation to red flag laws. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
And he said, well, we're just going to do it. We're just going to go take their guns away, and then we'll...
You're saying Donald Trump said this?
Yeah. And then we'll ask questions later, basically.
Okay.
So, and if I'm right, and you tell me if you find it, if I'm right, I think that Ron DeSantis is less likely to take people's guns away because Donald Trump...
without knowing much about what Donald Trump's stance on gun control is, and seeing that he's sit down for this, was a lifelong Democrat, by the way.
Yeah.
And Ron DeSantis isn't. They have constitutional carry in Florida now,
which
right?
is new.
Which is new. So yeah, then by that metric, okay, so you're 2-0 right now.
Okay.
Ron DeSantis.
All right. I believe that there could be other examples that aren't off the top of my head, aren't coming to me, but I believe that Donald Trump, having been through the ringer once, having been in the White House, knowing how hard it was to fight the deep state, promising to drain the swamp, and then just basically hiring everyone in the swamp,
right?
Yeah, doing the exact opposite. And don't give me, he couldn't. They were, everyone was working against him once he got into the White House. It's like, well, what did you expect?
Yeah.
Right? You thought they were going to just let you just do whatever you wanted to do? Yep. No. So I think that he, being the egomaniac that he is, wants to be in the White House so badly that he will cave to the powers that be.
That is a really good point.
And I think that Ron DeSantis has a apparatus that he's built slowly around him that when he goes into the White House, he will take that with him. All of those people that are helping him now are going with him to the White House.
I would definitely agree to the fact that someone like Ron DeSantis is definitely more principle driven. Actually, has like consistent principles that he has espoused that have stayed, that hasn't really changed more. Yeah.
Strikes me as less of an egomaniac
than Donald Trump.
I know. Okay. I mean, a lot less. I guess everyone alive strikes me as less of an egomaniac.
Look, he's nicer than John Wayne Gacy. Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, but that being said.
Okay. And I think that DeSantis would just be more of a rational. He's a known entity, and it looks to me like he's already given the middle finger to the Biden administration, the whole Washington apparatus. And he is more focused and more capable of doing damage to our existing system. And I think that Donald Trump, because of his megalomania, is more likely to just succumb to wanting to be the man instead of actually making a difference. Now, I'm not trying to disparage Donald Trump. He might want to make a difference. I'm just saying that he's more likely to be vulnerable to his own ego.
I got to say, I think you actually might have sold me.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have turned me around on that.
So, that being said,
I just envisioned this 3-tier system. If we have Joe Biden and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, is at the top we have Joe Biden, like full deep state. We are going to do this, and I'm saying it out loud, which I'm kind of thankful for. Like, okay, I'm glad you get putting your cards on the table. Like, we want to take your guns. We're we're coming for your kids. We want to get you on the CBDC, which we are going to talk about soon. And but then in the middle tier, Donald Trump, like, no. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm your guy. Like, I'm for freedom and everything. And then through action, much like Obama, like, I'm an anti-war guy. Cool, I'll vote for you. Like, wow, 2 wars to 7. That's not really what I voted for, which I did vote for. So Donald Trump's like,
they've changed the definition of anti.
Oh, gotcha.
As they're wont to do.
Yeah, they pulled the old CDC.
Exactly.
And then on maybe at tier number 1, you have Ron DeSantis is saying it out loud and basically walking the walk at the same time. I just made that up on top of my head. But I see where you're going with that.
That's kind of the feeling that I get. I could be wrong. I'm not saying Ron DeSantis is my
on this podcast.
Let's fact check that.
John Wayne Gacy killed 33 young boys, not 33 million. That was brought to my attention.
Did you say that?
I don't know.
I feel like I might have caught that if you had said 33 million.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll check.
I mean,
tape. There's probably a record of it somewhere.
We'll scour the internet. Yeah, 33 million would take like a lifetime.
It's an incredible work ethic.
Yeah,
like I mean, without being a communist, I mean, good luck to you. You'll be like a Stalin or a Mao if you're going to kill tens of millions of people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you have the work ethic of a capitalist, then maybe the free market is the way to achieve 33 million.
So many conflicting
boyhood
emotions right
ratings.
now.
That's just boys.
I thought we weren't going to go dark today. We're going to keep it like light and airy. We can't.
Are there even 33 million boys in the United States? I mean, probably not.
No.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. So, you may have heard about Donald Trump having...
I'm going to get an angry text. There's more than 33 million boys. Okay. All right.
Okay. Not the point. Donald Trump was found to have classified documents in his Mar-a-Lago home.
Yes, I heard about this.
Okay. That was supposed to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's become less of a big deal.
Right, because right after that, they found a bunch in Biden's garage.
Yes.
It was next to my Corvette. Thanks for throwing that in. That's not why we're here today, by the way.
And I remember when that came out, we did an episode and we called it something like, is that our president under that bus?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they were just throwing Biden under the bus.
Right.
It was like obvious to us, like, oh, they're getting rid of Biden. They're using the documents as an excuse to get rid of him. Well, that never happened. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Right? So it made me think, like, well, what was the point of all this? Because you and I don't see that stuff and just go, what a coincidence. Like, they just happened to all of a sudden, all at once, they found a bunch of fucking documents. Like, give me a break. Right? So
at that time, it made sense.
It did.
Yeah, for sure.
It did. But then, you know, every once in a while, we're wrong. And the proof is in the pudding.
On this podcast.
It came out and then nothing happened, right? And so I started thinking about it. I was like, well, what could have been another reason for it? And I thought of this. I think that the Democrats and the state at large, the governing kind of apparatus that's in charge right now.
Right. Capital S state.
Yes. Wants to have Donald Trump as the opponent.
Oh, I absolutely believe that.
To Joe Biden or to whoever's running on the Democrat side.
I think they do too.
Because when you're running against Donald Trump, your work is all done for you. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is just go, well, it's Donald Trump.
Right.
And people will just, just fucking freak out, right? And so...
It's funny because I have something about that we'll get to a little bit later.
Turn my lights on.
That's better? Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with that. I've heard that from other people too. But yeah, I think that, he's such a polarizing figure. Like, I think you pretty succinctly put it, our work is done. Like, we don't really have to which they didn't have to do with Joe Biden. He didn't really run a campaign. They stuck him in a basement somewhere. He put out a couple Zoom videos. Like, you're not voting for, and I'll get to this later, you're not voting for Joe Biden. You're voting for not Trump.
And Joe Biden is almost dead.
Yes.
So whatever happens to him doesn't really matter. It could come out that he was the worst. He was John Wayne Gacy. And it would just be like, well, you know, that ruins him, but it doesn't really ruin anything else. We're all, you know, we're fine with the, you know, we move on from him.
It does matter if Joe Biden dies.
Well, I think that the concerns are based on what we should all be concerned about, but the solutions have to be and include what we are doing in terms of going forward, in terms of investments.
If Joe Biden dies, I'm personally flying to Washington, D.C. Like, all right, come on, get up. We're going to take a walk around the block. Let's get some broccoli in you. Like, let's take some vitamins. Like, oh my God, please, please, please.
You don't want to see it? I mean, does it really matter? You wouldn't rather have
the comedy fodder that was going to be available for, you know, for people like us is going to be, well, our work is done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So what I think happened was what they
Dude, did you hear? Okay, so I recently heard, I don't want to derail you here for a second, but, you know, to speak about Kamala Harris is, I just recently heard, I wish I would have pulled the clip, but she did a speech in Africa that was right along the lines of what we just played. And it's like, what? Like, what? Like, what are you saying?
If you had just told me that she did a speech in Africa and it was 100% coherent, and clear, and had a beginning, a middle, and an end, my mouth would probably be hanging open.
No,
you know?
It was worse than what you just heard. And then you start thinking about, like, what's the flight to Africa? It's got to be 20 hours, 25 hours.
Probably.
Like, you didn't jot down just a couple notes. And it was like about nothing. It was like all these political speeches are about nothing because these politicians They have no ideas of their own. They're supposed to go like, we're looking for a strong, partnership with you. But like, dude, give me a subject. Well, like, give me a political subject. I'm a politician.
Okay. Inflation.
What we need to do is balance. I mean, obviously, we're looking at some hard economic times, but what we need to do is not completely rely on quantitative easing to, ease the effects of inflation. But at the same time,
I think that the concerns are based on what we should all be concerned about.
Never mind, she's got it. I was like, you had 20 hours to prepare something, and I just came up with something off the top of my head. I build houses for a living. Like, why can't I do this job better than you?
It is a very good. There's no way to actually look at this except that they're bad at their jobs because there is no incentive for them to be good at it.
Yeah,
and it's just like the whole system is the same exact way. The money printing. It's like
I'm glad you said it because that's what I want to talk about today.
It's everything is easy now. You don't have to balance a budget because we just print money. You don't have to be good at political speaking because we just snow job everybody and gaslight them in the press conferences. The media is going to cover for you. It's all just this shell game. We have a giant unaccountability problem that everyone is a part of. We all are.
Right.
I mean, your house does not appreciate. All right. You buying the house and waiting 5 years does not make the house better.
No.
Okay. Think about that. Your house got worse in 5 years, not better. There's no reason it should be worth more money.
Yeah.
We all live under this same thing. We don't need good politicians because that would be a waste of just energy.
That's also an oxymoron anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Ron Paul is a good politician.
Thomas Massey.
Okay. So what I think happened with the documents is that in order to give... I think they probably made some sort of, and this part I'm speculating on, so I could be totally
I see
wrong.
where you're going with this.
But they probably said to Trump, they being people in the FBI.
Right.
Or the CIA or the deep whatever state, the DIA, who knows. And said, look, we're going to throw some cover for you, help you get elected.
Yeah.
All right. But you need to do us, take it easy. Don't talk all the drain the swamp shit. And don't, just in exchange,
stop with the horse face tweets.
Yes,
which he didn't.
So what we're gonna do is we'll find some documents in Joe Biden's house, and then all of a sudden the documents in your house don't seem so bad, and we can throw Biden under the bus because he's almost dead.
Kind of water down the broth a little.
Who
bit.
cares?
Yeah,
Biden Schmeiden. Like we don't really care about him. He's a total just pawn, right? He's like the biggest pawn, but he's a pawn,
right?
Okay, so they did that. Now you would think, well, they haven't stopped harassing Trump because look what they're doing now. They're trying to get him imprisoned so that he can't run for president.
It's like campaign finance laws or something, something like that.
Well, it's they're getting him on. They're trying to turn a misdemeanor into a felony, and from everyone that I've
trying to make him ineligible to run.
Yeah, then who knows? Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Judge Napolitano seems to think it's a little bit more.
Serious than it seems. Yeah.
But
I listened to that.
But Mike, our attorney, says Napolitano's full of shit.
Well, I'm going with Mike.
Me too. However, if what they're actually trying to do is get Trump to be the nominee, then this shit with these misdemeanors is you couldn't come up with a better plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's gaining him a ton of support.
Yeah, his support went from, I can't remember the exact numbers, but he raised something like $4.5 million in the first 2 days after that news was announced, which I don't know if you don't follow this kind of stuff, and Lord knows why should you, but from the political kind of pundits and outsiders saying like that's like record-breaking money to be raising, especially for an already established candidate.
And people that care about the rule of law and look at things from a little bit of a mature perspective and say, hold on, the leading opposition opponent is you're trying to jail him. Mm-hmm. You're trying to
so that's the most disturbing
an offense out of nothing so that he can't run for office.
That's the most disturbing part about it to me because hang on, I got this.
Let me guess.
I'm not a Trump supporter. I was all about the idea of setting the precedent of someone already in power, jailing or making someone ineligible to run, their most likely opponent. That is not a precedent you want to set. And what I always say to people is like, listen, I understand you guys are in power. You're just drunk with authoritarianism. And like, let's decimate the other party. It's only a matter of time, as we say, our politics smashes from guardrail to guardrail, back and forth, back and forth. Those people will be in power. And if you set this precedent, it's going to be used against you. So be very careful with what you do, especially if you exclusively, that's not the case now, but when they control the House and the Senate, and they're like, let's just push through all this shit, gun control and the climate initiatives and, get rid of the filibuster. It's like, careful. You guys are not going to be in power forever.
That guardrail to guardrail metaphor is good. It needs a little tweak, though. Mm-hmm. It's a freeway with guardrails on each side that's constantly turning to the left.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll give you that one.
Right?
Yeah.
And we go to the right, we go to the left, but at the end of the day, like you're making
the entire road is
giant
going
left-hand turn, yeah. So
I'm a man without a country.
If you are Ron DeSantis, the day Donald Trump was arrested and he gave that speech, well, if you're Ron DeSantis considering running for president, the day that he gave that speech after he was arrested, he gave that speech from Mar-a-Lago,
right,
was like probably the day you decided, okay, this isn't, I'm not running. You can't run against that.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was probably, we'll see what happens, but probably a big blow to any chances of Ron DeSantis running for president.
Interesting.
So that's kind of the, that's where I'm at. Oh, that's where I'm at with that theory. However, speaking of Judge Napolitano, he was on Liberty Lockdown.
Yeah, I listened to that
the other day. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you catch that part where they were talking about basically what I'm saying right now?
Possibly.
I said it that way because I can't remember exactly what they were saying, but I have it down in my notes, so I'm going to play this for everybody right here.
It's not the nominee. I don't think Biden's going to care about running. I think the Democrats want Trump to be the nominee. I know many Republicans who believe that if Trump is the nominee, that's the only way Joe Biden can get reelected. If Trump is not the nominee, I don't think Biden's going to care about running for reelection. If Trump is the nominee, it's sort of an ego thing. But if Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party, the issue is not Joe Biden's horrific stewardship and bringing us to the brink of World War III. The issue is Trump, his personality, his character, and his crimes.
Yeah, interesting.
And that is really not something the American public wants to be the basis for choosing the president for the.
It's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it just all came out earlier. Like you're running against Trump, it's just it does the work for itself. But you're running against Ron DeSantis. Now you have to actually account for all of the shit that you did.
You're gonna have to go toe to toe.
You can't just say
with ideas.
Well, DeSantis. People will be like, "What DeSantis?
Who's DeSantis?"
Yeah, but when you say, "Well, Trump," I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I mean, I know Trump. Yeah, I'm not a Trump supporter. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not, but
oh, you mean the guy that put the kids in the cages? Yeah, I don't need to hear it. Yeah, I already know who I'm voting for.
Yeah.
It's starting to think. Well, I think we already started the show, but
it's never too late.
Okay, let's officially start the show.
Good morning. Time to get up and go to work.
So it's kind of interesting because you and I purposely don't talk about what we're going to talk about. So much so that we meet for lunch and beers and we stand there in stoic silence. Mm-hmm. It's like this weird thing stand
I want to tell him this so bad.
How about this rain, huh? Yeah, we warriors, right?
Really need it. Yeah,
they're pretty good. Is you actually brought up quite a few things that I actually became pretty interested in this week, and as a typical victim of insomnia, is
always playing the victim.
Yes, I wake up, dude. When that becomes an official disability,
you have not been suffering from insomnia for a long time.
It came back.
did it.
Yeah, just like a week ago.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Because the podcast was suffering. I got to tell you. We needed that.
What's on your mind? Nothing.
Feel good, though.
Feel good, man.
Yeah. Just happy.
Feeling spry.
Happy to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, just
things are all good. Is when these, you wake up at 2 a.m, next to your peacefully beautiful sleeping wife, as you should be doing, and you come up with these ideas, and I start then once I pull out my phone, like, okay, it's official. Like we're in for like 2-3 hours at this point.
Have you gotten to the point, because I've been suffering from insomnia myself. I promise this is the last episode I'm going to talk about prednisone because of the prednisone. And
it's because your face is too fat and you can't breathe right.
Exactly.
Just keep moving around.
I found
that good boy. Wait, I don't have a dog.
Okay, sorry. I've found that I've gotten better at being awake at night.
Yeah, it's an art.
Right?
I suffered for like a decade when I was living on your property. I was like, fuck it, I'm going running.
Well, I used to wake up and like worry about things.
Yeah.
Like work would come into my head.
Yes.
And start, oh God, that one solar tube is, we didn't caulk it right and it's at a weird angle. And I've gotten to the point now where it's like, well, that's a work mare, or that's a work thing.
Right.
I'm tripping because it's nighttime.
You compound it in your head.
And I'm compounding it in my head.
Because in your spot,
it's dark.
I clearly can't do anything about it right now, so let's make the problem worse by all means.
Exactly.
And you show up in your job like, it's fine.
Oh. So yeah, or no, what we need to do is just pull that off and recaulk it, and then we'll be good.
Yeah.
So glad I spent 4 hours worrying about that last night. So I've gotten better. Like when those thoughts creep into my head, I just kind of go, well, that's probably something that's only worrying me because I'm awake in the middle of the night.
Yeah. You make things worse.
There's just a way to kind of intellectualize it that's now that I'm better at. So I'm appreciative having...
Which is something I noticed because I started taking melatonin, which did something... My insomnia naturally went away because I tried sleep meds and which I tried to...
tried melatonin before too, right?
I have, and it never worked.
Yeah.
And so something switched in my brain where all of a sudden things got better or whatever. And then I still have the same amount of stress. But then you wake up in the middle of the night, and instead of, you know what? Thank you, insomnia, for not being specifically exclusive to work stress anymore. I really appreciate it because now I wake up and I start
about World War III.
Or lately, I wake up and I start thinking about, the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking and quantitative easing and Somali pirates. So, just the usual stuff that a well-adjusted adult will start thinking about. Now, I'd be remiss to move on without playing from the Somali Pirates this classic clip.
Look at me. Sure. Look at me. Sure. I'm the captain now. You like a bushman?
So this would be from the classic.
That dude just called Tom Hanks ugly?
Yeah.
Wow. That's not the pot calling the kettle black. I don't know what is.
That's from the classic 2013 movie, Captain Phillips, starring Tom Hanks. And credit where credit's due. To my knowledge, no information suggesting that he ever flew to Epstein Island. So, true standout in Hollywood.
Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks.
He seems like a good dude.
Yeah, seems like a very good dude. That's based on the true story of that.
Pretty much the standard now.
Yeah, no, did he fly to Epstein Island?
Yeah.
No.
Because most of them did.
Is he part of the World Economic Forum? Like, all right, dude. Yeah, invite him over.
Yeah, fuck yeah. He's Bruce Willis in my book.
That's based on the true story, even though I'm sure that Hollywood took their extensive liberties, as they usually do, from the 2009 hijacking of the ship, the Maersk, Alabama, which apparently is what this is based on. Okay, so let's back up for a sec, because I want to do this in true Liberty Tree fashion, where we're going to start at the end and then go back. And not, of course, not in any kind of lineal fashion, just sporadic, chaotic, ADHD-esque, Are
we going to start with the solution and then come up with a problem?
I have no solutions. I only talk about problems. I leave the solutions up to you.
All right.
So think about, and for you longtime listeners, so Somali pirates would be the Tom Cochrane in this situation, which is kind of interesting because the connection we made from Tom Cochrane is that he completely used his music to hijack the control of shipping lanes in Africa.
Right.
And what do Somali pirates do?
Well, they hijack shipping lanes in Africa.
Could be a coincidence.
Unless I'm not up on my Somali piracy.
Well, don't worry, because I'm going to bring you up to speed.
Okay.
So I want to play this clip real quick.
That's 2 minutes.
Commissioner, Mr. President, I rise again, I'm afraid, to make the same old hoary speech that I've been making here for several years.
Who is Godfrey
and that is,
Bloom?
It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept
I'm going
of
to tell
banking.
you in a sec.
All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem,
who is this
you have
suicidal
moral
maniac?
hazard, a very significant moral hazard
Exactly.
from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is...
Okay. Yes?
You know what we got here? Motherfucking Charlie Bronson.
Well played. Well played, dude.
Fucking Charlie Bronson. Guy's got a death wish.
That from the classic True Romance,
Yep.
right? Yes. Oh, great movie. Yeah. So the guy that I just played in the clip there is Godfrey Bloom. He's from the Europe of Freedom and Democracy group, and he's addressing the European Parliament there in 2013.
Oh, that was 2013.
2013.
Wow.
Yes.
So that guy's clearly been. Did that guy commit suicide?
Yes. Clearly, do not get it on any airplanes, sir. Hey, the Clintons invited me out for dinner.
If you know this man, do not fly with him.
And I bring this up because what he is saying, this is 2013, but it definitely was true then. It's even more true now. And it's probably the beginnings of the fruition of this guy's truth probably began coming true in 1913, which is explained beautifully in the book.
The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Creature from Jekyll Island.
Essential reading.
So this being in 2013, which is the same time that Captain Phillips came out. Coincidence?
Hell no.
Coincidence?
Obviously not.
Coincidence? All right, it's just a coincidence.
Spoiler.
So, did you know? So I started looking back into Creature Jekyll Island, and then did you know that there is a fairly sizable movement trying to discredit that book, called a right-wing conspiracy theory?
You mean spoiler alert?
Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's something read by spoiler alertists, such as ourselves. And so there has been an active campaign.
I mean, I don't read books that aren't considered a right-wing conspiracy.
I know. When I see that, I'm like, I should probably check that out.
Yeah,
it's like the old school PMRC album record label, warning label. That's how I discovered Slayer. I was like, I should probably buy that album and listen to it. That became one of my favorite all-time bands.
That's why I eat lead paint chips, because right. Warning from California.
Right. I noticed that tick went away that you had for a while. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So much smoother.
Yeah, it's just with a fat face, it's just so much more pronounced because your cheeks would be like a half second behind your chin. Okay, So the author G. Edward Griffin's writings were, quote, promote a number of right-wing views and conspiracy theories regarding political defense and healthcare. And it just made me put it's just like he's writing about how you are being screwed by the Federal Reserve and this weird like, we call it the tribal binary, but this weird knee jerk of like, don't you make fun of the Federal Reserve and the big banks. Like, they're my friends. Didn't you see the commercial? It's just like, who are you people? Like, who are you people? Like, I fully don't understand. It's like you're sitting around going like, yeah, sure, man. I can't afford a house. I'm in my 40s and I have no plan for my retirement. But I did see that the JP Morgan Chase, they promoted they sponsored a float for the Pride Parade. So I don't know.
Seems like things are ticking in the right direction.
You guys' little ideas, that, just because they can rake in trillions of dollars and control the global economy, you think they would screw over the American public? Like, you can take that little conspiracy theory somewhere else.
Let me guess. The articles or people claiming that Creature from Jekyll Island is a right-wing conspiracy are completely void of any examples of how it's actually not correct.
I know.
Right? I'm sure that the fact check.
I can't hear that clip anymore without envisioning the
Gabe being completely
disappointment
annoyed.
on Gabe's face. He's like,
we're fucking out of here.
fucking
How
hate you
dare
people.
you? I know. I'm sure that the fact check is something like, well, he says that this meeting was on the island called Jekyll Island. The actual name of the island is it's like, okay, fine, you're right.
You got us. So the reason why I picked this clip out and I thought it was kind of important is I saw it as kind of a springboard to talk about something that I wanted to bring up. And that is that the way that he puts in kind of pretty much layman's terms. So he's talking about specifically, for example, talking about quantitative easing and saying like it's counterfeiting when you think about it. And I did look into it. It is counterfeiting.
Well, one man's money printing is another man's.
Right. And it's interesting to try to break down. I did some deep dives on some like really dry financial, like abstract things, and it's done intentionally so. It's done intentionally so.
Maddie's insomnia is back, baby.
No. Honey, I love you, and things will get better soon. I promise. So
we just need a few more Patreon supporters. Babe. Just stick with me.
Right. There's a great line in the book called The Big Short by Michael Lewis. There's also a phenomenal movie made about it, and it basically outlines what happened with the 2008 financial crash. And if all the fundamental tenets of the book and the movie are basically the same parallels for what goes on with the economy as a whole, right? It's the infrastructure from which that whole thing operated in is why the economy crashed. So when you understand like some basic things, and they throw around like a lot of like intentionally made like obscure and complex terms like that you're not supposed to understand, and there's a reason why they do this. And in this book, they interview this hedge fund manager, and there's this great line in there where he goes, this hedge fund manager says, we intentionally use like obfuscated and like very like overly verbose like acronyms and terms because you're not supposed to understand it. And why we do that, this guy's very like forthcoming and honest, and it's a pretty powerful part of the book. He goes, the reason why we do that is so when we approach a potential investor is we use all this language and they don't understand any of it. And what that does is it impresses upon them that like we're the experts. Yeah. Like you don't understand this stuff like we do. We use all these terms like MBS and CDOs and all this stuff, and you go like, cool, this guy clearly knows what he's talking about. Here's $20 million to invest in the MBS market or whatever. Now, as someone in the building trades, I'm sure this technique sounds familiar.
I was just going to say that, dude. That you see that everywhere. You go into the steel shop and they use their lingo. You go into the the hardware store. There's always people that
then we do it to our clients and our subs do it to us.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yes. There's always like people that want other people to think that they're more knowledgeable, and so they use lingo.
Yeah.
Doctors do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Psychological mumbo jumbo.
But that being said, we are here to point the finger at other people, not ourselves.
No,
all right?
not us.
We aim to keep the self-loathing and introspection at a bare minimum here at Liberty Tree.
So, hard to do, but
yes, let's move on.
Especially with all the hate listeners that we have.
So point being, take this ride with me for a second.
Okay.
Is if you want to start explaining this to people, and we are going to explain it to people, but we're going to point it into layman's terms for people to understand, right? Because if you go to Easter dinner and you start talking about tranches and credit default swaps and CDOs and MBSs, fractional reserve banking, quantitative easing, and how it all operates under the umbrella of the Federal Reserve, like, try that out. Do the homework and try that out. Then take a quick stock of the level of interest of the people around you who you have now like pretty much held hostage with your fucking diatribe that no one really fucking cares about. Their eyes are going to like roll back in their heads. Like you have to approach this in a way you're trying to explain how people are fucking getting screwed, right? Which is what the book Jekyll Island does.
Yeah.
And then the people that don't understand this stuff write hit pieces on this guy like it's a right-wing conspiracy. It's like, you're getting screwed by this too. Do you not understand that? Like, what is this knee-jerk reaction? Like, do a little bit of homework. Now, that book is incredibly dense and very thorough, I guess we could say.
I wouldn't call it dense.
It's
not hard to understand. It's very easy to read.
It's very long.
But it's long as shit. Yeah. And thorough.
So, as it pertains to this conversation, now I can define all that stuff I said, the CDOs and the MBSs and all that stuff. Like, I'm sure you have a marginal understanding of what that stuff is.
I understood about 1/3 of the words that you just used.
So what we need to talk about is quantitative easing and CDOs. CDOs, so I'll go ahead and explain this then. CDOs are collateralized debt obligation. Investors, they bundled. This is what caused the 2008 crash. This is what is explained in the movie The Big Short. Explains this really awesome. Like if you don't want to like do a deep nocturnal dive on this stuff, like watch that movie. It's like they do a very entertaining way of showing it. But they take all these high risk loans, bundle them into one giant package, which they refer to as a tower, and then they make them look more attractive to an investor who will buy up all the loans. So think about it like this. As someone in the building trades I go to the dump. I go and pick up all of the giant chunks of concrete and all the rotted wood that people threw away and all the discarded windows and doors and the discarded roofing. I slap it all together, paint it, and go like, now it's a house. And I sell it. That's what a CDO is. And I sell it to someone, and it falls down in a year. And I know it's going to fall down, but like, what? Yeah,
no, it's not.
I sold it. I sold it.
It's not a house. It's a kit. Right.
Right.
We have all the components that you need to build a house. I mean, there's still some work to do. You have to, provide some things like nails.
Fuck, dude.
But
you busy Monday?
No, and I have a trailer.
I just got an idea. And then. You're familiar?
You pull up to the dump. Like, what are you dumping? Oh, nothing.
I'm taking it away from you. Like, fuck, have at it, Hoss.
Yeah, go ahead, fill her up.
Dude showed up in a Mercedes. And then we already know what fractional reserve banking is, right? You have a basic understanding of that. And then about quantitative easing.
That's just printing money to cover up the
more or less as a monetary policy where a central bank purchases a predetermined amount of government bonds or other financial assets.
It's bank bailout,
which sounds great, but they're doing that to stimulate the economy. Like, well, how do they purchase that? They do that by printing more money, with counterfeiting,
and they give that money to the banks.
This is what Godfrey Bloom's saying. Like, how is that not counterfeiting? Right.
Exactly.
So
it is if you and I do it.
I realize at this point the comedic value of two people that build houses are explaining obscure financial policy, but we're just going to move on.
We were supposed to have Clint on today to explain this. But
so when you hear someone like Godfrey Bloom propose how quantitative easing is, simply put, is merely counterfeiting, and it is counterfeiting. But what's useful about hearing something like that is it pulls it out of this like dry, deep financial abstract and puts it into terms, or at least a kind of conceptual realm where people can realize that they're probably getting screwed. And they are getting screwed. Left, right, and center. Everyone's getting screwed. Because none of these entities, the let's talk about people at the top of the financial hierarchy. None of these people are beholden to any political ideology. If there's one thing that you can take away from all the fucking bullshit with the Deagle and the booster rages and everything that we just like shoot from the hip, you know what I mean, and get wrong occasionally, is this is the one thing that I wish people to retain, is that these people, they're financing both sides of everything, much like you have brought up with the military-industrial complex. They're not beholden to, there are no sides. Right. It's like you when you're picking a side, this is my guy, this is my guy. These guys are financing both sides.
Picking a side would imply that you had some sort of a ethical or some sort of connection, some familial, right. You know, but when you're really just trying to make money, you don't give a flying fuck who wins.
Right.
You want them to buy your stuff.
Exactly.
Hold on a sec. I'm going to get me.
All right, we're doing a deep dive. So point being, outside of everything, you know, when we do these deep dives and you get into the details of stuff, is just to impress upon people that you live, to quote The Last American Vagabond, which is an excellent show you can find on Rebel.
Did you just say you live to quote The Last American Vagabond?
Did I say that?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I didn't mean to.
John Wayne Gacy killed 33 million boys.
Like you said, you live to quote The Great American Vagabond.
No, if I could quote the Great American Vagabond, is that they call it the two-party illusion. When the reality is that you live in this uniparty, centralized, top-down authoritarian system, which you are motivated exclusively by money. Your money, by the way. And you are here at the point of a gun. We always say that. Everything is a reduction to violence at the end. Like, you have no choice whether you want to take part in the system or not, unless you pull off like a Ted Kaczynski, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Even he didn't. It didn't work.
No. You know, it's in federal prison.
All you could hope to pull off is a American Revolution.
So for the people at the top of this financial power hierarchy, you have to realize, to them, there are no Republicans, there are no Democrats. There's just everyone underneath them. Right?
Yeah.
And they bank on you people out there saying, like, I'm a Trump guy or I'm a Biden guy. And the way that okay, let's talk about something. There are no Biden guys. Right? There's only not Trump guys, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Dude. Oh, okay. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was lucky enough to not have to miss any work, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone was trying slowly, like, kind of getting back to it. Like, we never knew who was an essential worker or not. And I remember being at Home Depot and stopping there before work, and I was heading out to the job. I was in a hurry. And this would be, you know that kind of sunshine that we have, like late spring? Like, it's just so bright. It's like...
Yeah, like the sun's still kind of low in the sky.
Right.
It's hitting you right in the eyeballs, no matter where you go.
No brand of sunglasses or no visor.
No leaves on the trees.
Right. It's just
nothing to shade
It's like you're being interrogated by Mother Nature, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like backing up, and then I hear like screaming, and then I see
felt like a thunk thunk on your.
Yes. Right. So I don't have a license and a warrant, so I take off. And I see this motion. I stop, and this woman comes around the corner of my truck. And I realized she had been behind me, and I could not see her. Right, and I'm going 1 mile an hour and backing out of a parking spot, and she's waving her arms. And
were you yelling beep beep out the window?
And the first thing I notice is she is wearing a blue surgical mask and blue surgical gloves, and she's got her. Just to set the scene here.
It's nice that the crazy people actually now have a way to signal that they're crazy.
What I say, it's like it's extremely comforting when the cattle brand themselves.
Exactly.
I enjoy that. But she had that hairdo where it's just like fucking pulled back. That like it's like tight, like it's like it must affect your vision. It's so tight. It's like just a right. I'm just an angry bitch.
Your sinuses up.
Yes. And I can see, the only thing I noticed is she had like black hair and black eyebrows, so they're very pronounced. When she's got the mask on, and they're like tilted down, like angry, like almost like cartoonish. Yeah. I can see like she's like raging and she's like waving her arms and everything. And I don't have the road rage thing, you know. I don't have the like. I'm not going to get angry about this. Like,
I don't know. There was that one time with the club.
Okay, how many times are you going to bring this up
until you tell the story?
That guy fucking deserved it. All right, remind me. I will tell that story later. I held my hand out, gave her the like, sorry, that was my fault. Sorry, like, sorry about that. You know, I'm like giving her
hiling.
Yeah, yes. And so, just to try to ease the situation, I get out and I start goose stepping around my truck. So I'm giving her the hand, like, sorry, like totally sorry about that. And then that makes her like angry. And so again, now I'm doing the more pronounced, like, I'm sorry. Like, sorry, I didn't see it. Like, sorry about that. And so I like back out and she's walking away from me. And now she's still like looking over her shoulder, like waving her arms. And now she's kind of like emphasizing whatever she's saying, like with her feet. So she's like changing her cadence a little bit with the way she walks, you know, like emphasizing the words that she's saying, like by kind of stomping with her foot a little bit.
Well,
and like,
because she has a mask on, so she needs to.
Yes, exactly.
She can't use her face to do it. She has to use her feet.
You have to compensate for body language. You know, you have taken away half your face, so you're using, you know, your bipedal characteristics here to convey language to me, which is very odd. And so now I'm like, it's getting a little bit comical at this point. It's not like I hit you, like, what's with the fucking anger? And so, but now I have to drive by her very slowly, and she's still like seeing me coming and like yelling. And now I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck this. And so I like rolled out my window.
Yes, come on.
And she's at her car now, and I don't like conflict. I don't like to escalate. I just say like, but I say like, lady, take it easy. I'd say like, don't let her ruin your day.
Call her lady?
No, I think I did. I said like, lady, I'm sorry, but like, let's not make this a thing. Like, let's not make a day out of this. I said something like that, and she just like fucking loses it. I realize she's at her car. And they're low, and I look over, and this is the best part, is her husband, who's dressed exactly like her. They both have that puffy REI jacket, you know, the one that says, like, I hike on the weekends, which I believe comes with the Prius. And it's part of the deal.
And an NPR subscription.
And he also has a blue surgical mask and blue surgical gloves on, and he's loading flowers into the back of the Prius. They were like twins. It was awesome.
Wow.
And I turned to look at him because I'm kind of like, is everyone, am I the only one seeing this? Like, this lady's unhinged, right? Yeah. And I look at him, we meet eyes, and he just kind of like sinks at the knees and kind of tucks behind the car so I can no longer see him. Like, he just like, I'm hiding from this situation. Which
he's been here before.
Yeah, exactly. Which made me laugh so hard because now I'm like thinking about the guy. I'm like, oh, like, you got a little pet here. Exactly. I understand. Yep. And I almost felt like the guy was like, I want to like adopt this guy at this point. So
he needs.
I was like, dude, I need some help with some firewood. We're gonna hang out, have some beers. We're gonna take apart the lawnmower for no reason. Like, we're just gonna like do some shit. You know what I mean? I didn't say it made sense, buddy. This is just what dudes do. That guy voted for Biden. That's the point of that story.
Gotcha.
Because his wife told him he's a Biden supporter.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that guy is a Biden voter.
Yeah. Man, that almost reminded me. Never mind. Okay, remind me to bring up the Dave's Market story on another podcast.
I got a good Dave Market.
We're too far off the beaten path here.
So back to the show here. I guess apparently. So there are the people at the top, and there are the way that they see it. There's no Democrats, Republicans. There's this weird binary that people get caught up in. There's only them at the top, and there's us underneath. There's the plebes. What do we call them? The useless eaters, the useless idiots.
We don't call them that.
No, we don't. This is what these people call them.
Yuval
Harari calls them. And there's, you know, it's those of us that buy into all this stuff. We buy into this, like, you know, I know I'm a Republican, so I hate Democrats. I know I'm a Democrat, so I hate Republicans. And there's no difference between Democrats versus Republicans. The book that I have right here, This Town by Mark Leibovich, explains that all. Like, it's a uniparty. It's the Green Party, the party of green. It's money. They're there to get rich. No one is there to represent you. And a distinct marker of the people that buy into stuff is that those of you that constantly ingest the 24/7 fear porn being spoon-fed to you by the corporate media constantly. right? On that note, I think we talked about this. Speaking of fear porn, you ever notice there's no COVID variants all of a sudden anymore? That's just like not a thing.
Yeah. No, they're overwhelmed with work these days, I think.
Yeah, with other things.
Yeah. The guy that was coming up with the COVID variants, he's just like just completely overwhelmed with it's one guy. That's the problem, right? They haven't funded this department. So the guy that was coming up with
that guy's got his work cut out for him.
Omicron, and then the Delta, and now it's like we're on to Ukraine, and there's the fucking the trans activists and the we are the seven thing. He's like, you guys, I can't keep doing the COVID thing.
He just snapped one day. He's like, hey, also slide these. I haven't seen my family in 7 days. I need a day off. Like, I can't do all this stuff. I can't do all this stuff. You got to give me.
I need some help.
I need some help.
Hire someone.
Need some help. Give me some interns.
Well, there's no more COVID variants. All right, you guys choose.
When you pose that question to people, and inevitably, or I guess anecdotally, because I did experience this out in the wild, they're like, no. The variants are still out there. Speaking of fear porn, right? The variants are still out there. It's just that the media's not reporting on them. In which you go like, exactly.
Thank you. That's what I've been fucking saying for 3 years now.
That's when you get people that look like, you see where I'm going with this? Like, is the math adding up at all?
No, it's not. They're like, what are you talking about?
No, it's not. How to be a goldfish. Well, that shiny plastic castle is a surprise every time. Okay, so point being, for those at the top, and they know that Democrats and Republicans are merely part of this kind of two-party illusion, just the same way that the Raiders versus the Niners are, or that Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant is. It's all kind of the same thing, and people fucking buy into this. I get it. It's entertaining, but you have to realize it's not based in reality, and that's something that we try to bring up when we talk about these things, right?
Yeah. People that watch Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, people that watch WWF as we knew it as a kid, they knew that what they were watching was entertainment.
Right.
But people that
watch political debates, like, fucking
they don't.
Mitt Romney brought up some good points right there. I gotta say,
this is the most important election of our lifetimes. We have to be on board with one party or the other.
Democracy is on the ballot this time around. That reminds me, I was thinking about this, and I was driving around, and I saw this lady. She had a bumper sticker that said OMG GOP. I was like, huh. I was like, you're kind of the, and I was already thinking about this stuff. I was like, yeah, you're kind of the person that I'm thinking about. And then look, and she doubled down. She also had the personalized license plate that said OMG GOP.
Which did she get first?
Well, I did think about that. I was like, did you get the bumper sticker and then the personalized? Because you got the personalized license plate, and then you were at the county fair, like, oh my God, like, what are the chances?
Well, that's true. Yeah, if that was totally organic, she already had the personalized license plate, and then she saw the bumper sticker, then you kind of have to buy it.
Right? Yeah.
But if
it's serendipitous at that point.
If you bought the license plate first and then went online looking for the bumper sticker, come on. We got it. You only need the one. You can't do both. That's the belt and suspenders approach to the 9th degree. We don't need both.
I got a beer on the line here.
Okay.
You want to guess what kind of car she was driving?
Beer? We're betting a beer on this?
Yeah, betting a beer on this. If you get it right.
There's only 2 options.
Right. No.
I'm going Subaru.
No, Prius. You're so close. You see, you got to wear the entire uniform if you want to. Yeah, if you want to virtue signal to your fellow low status primates, you got to do the whole thing. It takes a lot of work.
Turns out she's actually like a diehard Republican. Like, OMG GOP.
Good job. It's Halloween every day.
God.
Okay, so what we're talking about.
What are we talking?
Okay, we'll get there. We're talking about politics, and we're talking about, just a refresher. We're talking about our financial system, how we're all getting screwed, but we keep getting sidetracked with our bullshit stories.
Hilarious side takes.
So when think about we say this quite a bit. You think about politics within we call it bread and circuses, which we spent an episode on talking about the concept of bread and circuses, or as Uncle Ted called it, surrogate activities. And Uncle Ted calls this, now this is how he defines it, and tell me if this isn't a snake eating its own tail. It's a designated activity that is directed toward an artificial goal that people set up for themselves merely in order to have some goal to work towards.
Yeah.
I give you golf or arguing on social media or all of our elections, when you really think about it, within this broad spectrum of the way of who's at the top of this power hierarchy are the central banking system, the Federal Reserve, and the big banks. And they're not beholden to any political party. They don't give a shit who's in office. I give you the financial crash of 2008, and we talked about Obama. I was like, I'm going to hold these bankers' feet to the fire. And they're like, no, you're not. You're not going to do anything. And you're also going to give us a bailout, and we're going to give ourselves bonuses. So how about that, happy crappy? Get fucked and fucking say it walking.
Are you saying that golf is like a useless activity?
Nothing's useless. We all need things to take our minds away. There's nothing wrong with watching sports. It's like you can't sit here and read about fucking fractional reserve banking all night like you'll go fucking insane. You have to have a timeout. There's nothing wrong. Surrogate activities isn't it's not a pejorative. It's not a bad thing. I always get hung
up on this when you bring it up.
I know you do. No, like you have to.
You have to remind me every time.
Yes. No, it's not a pejorative. It's like you, as a human being, you need leisure. You need to relax. You need to take your mind off all the shit every once in a while. But what I'm saying is the reason why I'm bringing it up
with reality
is when you see this broader paradigm of who's actually controlling the entire globe, I would argue. Big banks and fractional reserve banking and the fucking big banks.
Tom Cochran,
exactly. And who we haven't connected him to Deagle yet, which we will do soon.
Look forward to that one.
Right. Is what I'm saying is like even you guys diehard Democrat, diehard Republican, I'm going to go and go to the ballot and we're going to vote for my guy. The elections are the same thing. The elections are surrogate activities. They're the same thing as watching sports. It's like it's a way to take your mind off of what is really going on, that you're being screwed. There's a reason why you have no retirement. There's a reason why you can't afford a house in your 40s. And there's a reason why that we have inflation. There's a reason why our currency has been so devalued starting in 1913. There's a reason. Started at 2013, which is when Captain Phillips came out, by the way. Coincidence? Coincidence?
I don't think so.
I did have a quick side note that I feel like that we should clarify. That when we talk about Ted Kaczynski, who we're constantly talking about in his book, Industrial Society, and his future, like he nailed a lot of things. He got a lot of things right.
People.
Yeah. But that being said, he did kill a lot of innocent people and he did injure a lot of innocent people, which might be a violation of the non-aggression principle, which is the fundamental tenet of libertarianism, which is why we're against wars. All wars. Not just some wars. All wars. Not all wars, but we got Ukraine right this time. No, all wars is what violate the NAP, the non-aggression principle.
All wars that are not 100% participated in by willing participants.
Everyone on both sides is all in. We call that mutual combat, which we have mutual combat states, which I think we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. Point being that I think that Ted Kaczynski's philosophy was spot on. His execution, I guess you could say, was fatally flawed.
Fatally flawed.
Yeah.
Literally. Had he only killed people that deserved it,
people that worked at the post office. All right, I'm listening.
Had he only mailed packages to the DMV, we'd all be on board. But
hey, I got to break a few eggs. What are you gonna do? Okay, so back to let's get back to the point of this podcast. Back to Easter dinner and quantitative easing, right?
Yes.
So when you ask people, going back to what Godfrey Bloom was saying at Easter dinner, like, why is counterfeiting bad? Right? Why is it bad?
Yeah.
Well, it's illegal. Why is it illegal? Ostensibly, they make things illegal, right? Because it's going to be harmful to society somehow. Now, you might have to go through a couple of rounds, but eventually you get to the answer of...
Or the question, why is it okay for the government to do it?
Because if everyone started printing money, it would undervalue our fiat currency to the point where it wouldn't be worth anything. To which, once again, you go like, Exactly. Aunt Cheryl. Want to pass those potatoes down here, please? And how about them Warriors? Now you're back in the tribe. Like, everyone trusts you again. So as much as I want to make a Liberty Tree prediction, much in the way that we made a prediction about, what's the last one we made, was about the limited hangout. Like, you're going to start seeing this term more and more and more and more. And then we described what the limited hangout was, and we did start to see it more and more. Yep. I wanted to make the same prediction about quantitative easing, but I think it's a little too self-congratulatory. It's like, we're already seeing it. It's like, I already missed the mark.
Well, people have been calling it since
right. Yeah,
before 2008.
Yeah, right. But I think as far as the common vernacular, as far as the popular zeitgeist, I think where people are going to start. I keep seeing this term move, come up more and more and more.
And you're saying that that's a limited hangout?
No, not at all. Totally separate. I think it's just because we're going to see the effects of it. I think they're going to start to utilize quantitative easing we're in a fucking financial train wreck right now.
Yeah.
And we're just in the beginnings of it. It's going to get much worse. So we're going to start to see that term more in like the New York Times and the Chronicle. And
a term you brought up in the last podcast, maybe it was the one before that, that to me kind of ties in with the limited hangout is the pre-bunking notion.
Right. Absolutely.
And you're probably going to see that around this idea of quantitative easing because
we are going to get
you're watching, are we? Dude, we're already 2 hours into this podcast. We have to eventually call it a day. I'm just kidding. We could go all day. I don't really care. I'm enjoying this. We're going to see things in the media that have never been in the media before.
Yeah.
The idea of quantitative easing, for example, the idea of the petrodollar.
Yep.
The idea that printing money is what causes inflation. Like, we might start seeing these like limited truths kind of being sprinkled. Because if you watch CNN or MSNBC all the time, those terms are probably a foreign language to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've never heard them before, if that's all that you pay attention to, right? It wouldn't surprise me if we did start seeing a lot of that being dropped.
Absolutely.
Pay attention to that because I think you might be onto something there.
Yeah, that's actually, you have basically made the cliff notes for everything I'm bringing up right now. By the way, I want to make let's get sidetracked again. I do want to make a Liberty Tree prediction. I want to go on record saying this. Just as we had a plan from the PNAC, the Project for a New American
Century.
Trying
to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation because the profit invariably falls between two stools.
Future's now, old man.
That is good. So just as that we had a plan from the Project for a New American Century that we would invade 7 countries in 5 years, and we need a new Pearl Harbor to basically, as the impetus to stave off the fucking masses from rioting in the streets or protesting, right? We need a reason to sell the public on this so we can have the public support. And we did do that. We did have 9/11, voila, magically. And then we did invade 7 countries in 5 years, beginning with Iraq. So, prediction. Beginning with the insolvency of the Silicone Valley Bank, which was intentionally brought down, by the way. Not the podcast for this. We can do that another time. I think we are witnessing the first stages of the controlled demolition of our monetary system as we know it. And this will be leveraged as the catalyst event or the new 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, as it were, to make the case for the transition to the central banking currency. And that's something that we are really going to start seeing more and more, I think.
Looking forward to talking to you about this because I have some contrary ideas about CBDC.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have a shirt on our website at libertytreelifestyle.com that says, fuck your CBDC. And I stand by that notion, and I think everyone should go and buy that shirt and wear it proudly. I mean, it has the word fuck on it. It's hard to wear that out in public. But regardless, the sentiment remains the same. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do have my doubts about the danger and the ability for them to be if efficacious is a word, efficacy of this to actually work, I have my doubts. And so
interesting.
When you bring it up next time, we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd look forward to seeing it. So
I don't know shit about shit. So, feel free. We'll get Clint on for that one. Hopefully.
There you go.
He can tell me if I'm wrong.
There you go. I wanted to bring that up because I want to go on record, and I would urge you, loyal listener, to also go on record, tell your spouse, your neighbor, your coworker, maybe that Tinder date that you're about to go on, maybe share it with them. So that way you can
get that shit out in the open.
So go on record of someone hearing you saying that we are going to definitely see the push because our fiat currency is completely collapsing and saying like, well, the next logical move is for us to move to the CBDC. So when you text that Tinder date, like, hey, remember, it's me, John. We had drinks at Chili's, 6 months ago. Like, remember I was saying about the CBDCs? Like, crazy, right? And they go, of course, no, I don't remember you saying anything about that. And you can kind of shrug and mutter, going, well, I tried. So anyway, please do that. Happy Easter. Back to the show. Okay, so as the economy gets worse and worse over the next few years, as I was saying, I think you're going to see this phrase, quantitative easing, come up more and more. And so we want to put this in layman's terms, and the best notion that I thought of is quantitative easing. Think of it like this. It's the financial version of the hair of the dog, right? So think about like...
it's a great analogy.
It's the same concept. Like there's this guy or guys, I don't know, maybe they have like a podcast or something like that, and who does more of that thing to try and ease the effects of that same thing that got them there in the first place. Like that's what quantitative easing is when you really think about it. So, yes.
There's a flaw.
Okay.
Oh God, I want to do a whole episode on this. This is too much. Do we have 3 hours to do this podcast?
Just keep going.
Okay. The hair of the dog analogy, is almost right, except that when you're hungover and then you have a beer to ease the pain, it doesn't just push that pain off till later. It actually eases the pain, and then later on, you might not feel great later on, but you've actually eased the pain. It is medicine that works.
Okay.
And then later on, you can kind of deal and get yourself back. Quantitative easing pushes it to later. And if it was the same analogy, it would be like you're totally hungover. You have a major headache. You're dying. You have a beer. You feel good. And then once that beer wears off, again, you're dying. You're even more dying, and you're even more headache. You're more in pain. You're worse than you were before.
You're right. We're stepping in the same pile of shit here, right? So the way that I saw it is that the first analogy is the guy, and this is not the one that's applicable to our financial system the way we go. The hair of the dog analogy is eventually said guy wakes up Sunday morning, goes like, you know what? I have a huge day, Monday. We're going to have that one beer, and then I'm going to fire some work emails. Like, we're going to hit a run. I'm going to have a good breakfast, and then I'm going to organize my day, my week for the rest of the day, because I got to hit the ground running Monday. The second analogy, the hair of the dog analogy, is Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas. And he just keeps drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And he moves into a shitty motel room in Vegas, right? And then he eventually hooks up with a prostitute. And the analogy being that America and the central banking system, which are synonymous at this point, America had that first sip of beer in 1913. Goes like, I'm digging this. Like, I like this. And then it raged through its fucking 20s the way that we all did. I was like, dude, I can just party all fucking night, sleep for an hour and a half, still make it to class, still get to my job. I can still produce things. I can still be productive, right? And now, here we are in 2023, and that guy is in his 50s or like early 60s, and his family's gone, his wife has left him, he's unemployed, and he's living in a shitty hotel room with a fucking prostitute, and his liver's about to give out. That's what we're looking at right now. That's what quantitative easing is.
Well said.
So you can choose to believe or not believe the events that happened in Creature of Jekyll Island. But for all of us, like what is happening now for all you conspiracy theorists or all us chicken littles talk about these things, like they're undeniably the effects have come true, right? Would you not agree?
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the valuation of our fiat currency. Like look at inflation. Like look at the cost of goods, right? Look at by all financial metrics, like we are in a fucking complete shit show. And my prediction is this is just the beginning. Like even we had like crazy dips in like 2008 and we're looking at another recession, but it's just all a downward trajectory, right? We've talked about this numerous times on this podcast.
Yeah, it's all come true exactly as predicted. The argument against it is that, well, the reason that we're seeing inflation is that there's greed of corporations that are raising prices on people, and that's stupid and ignorant. And all of the predictions, such as in the book Creature from Jekyll Island, have said this was going to happen.
Yeah.
He's not the only one. Everyone has predicted this. Every smart economist has predicted that this was the outcome of printing money, and now we're experiencing it.
Yeah. So again, to drive home the point, like even if you buy into this article probably on Vox or some shit, it's like, no, that guy's a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I'm like, well, what they said was going to happen is happening. I mean, that's kind of
debate it on its principles, not on
right
what Vox is.
So when you start understanding the way that all these things operate under the central banking system, model under the Federal Reserve, you start asking questions, right? In the middle of the night when you should be sleeping. And apparently that not being an option, you start asking like, how is quantitative easing not counterfeiting? How is fractional reserve banking not the world's largest Ponzi scheme? And how is the MBS market not just the same thing as going to Vegas and throwing it all in black? That last analogy being a little clunky, because if I go to Vegas, throw it all in black, I'm operating under the assumption I'm using my own money. That's not how the MBS market works. You're doing that with someone else's money, which caused the 2008 financial crash, which I think is also the reason we're going to see another crash here.
What's MBS?
Mortgage-backed securities. It's basically, it's betting on whether people are going to be able to pay their mortgage. It's turning someone's mortgage into a commodity that you can stake money on, basically.
Yeah, money that was loaned and has interest payments on it that you can financialize. And
so let's bring it around.
Okay.
This is the
really? I mean, we got plenty of time.
Okay. So now that we understand that we are living in the confines of the world's largest and most vast Ponzi scheme, and our liver is about to give out, I naturally start doing a deep dive on the Somali pirate trade, as one does, right?
Excellent.
Oh,
Hold on a
we're going late today.
Get me, a beer.
There is a city.
I didn't douse my computer in beer.
Yeah. There's a city in Somalia. It's called Harad Here. It's about 250 miles northeast.
How do you pronounce that?
Harad Here.
Oh, okay.
Harad Here.
Very good. Okay.
I've been working my Afrikaan lately. It's about 250 miles northeast of Mogadishu. And Somalia, as most countries in that area, have wallowed in abject poverty for decade upon decade upon decade, which I'm sure has nothing to do with the U.S. military inventions that began with the Battle of Mogadishu in 1992. We're still there, by the way. So every president, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and Biden just recently upped the ante. We just did a drone strike there that killed 30 people in January. But they were Al-Shabaab. They were bad guys. I'm sure this is like,
thank God.
I'm sure this is nothing like the drone strike in Kabul that killed 7 children, the youngest being 2, and 2 U.S. friendly aid workers. This is totally not one of those things. Totally different. Whoops, our bad. Sorry about that, guys.
If someone killed your 2-year-old child, if someone killed my 2-year-old child, I would probably think my life was no longer worth living. I'd have no problem dedicating my life.
I'm glad you said that because not to over-egg the pudding here, but the point being that when you sit in your comfortable suburban home with that stupid Ukraine flag in front of your house and that coexist sticker on your $50,000 luxury car, and you ask yourself, like, what would drive people to do this? This is what drives people to do this shit like this. It's very, very simple. You put it very perfectly there. You got to the point before I did. Thank you.
$50,000 is a Hyundai, by the way, nowadays.
Yes, exactly. Because of quantitative easing. Anyway, Somalia being an extremely poor country, Reuters, via the Wall Street Journal, and other media outlets in 2011, they began to notice that Harare had, and other cities around it, had like a massive influx of cash all of a sudden. And they're saying, like, quote, cities packed with luxury cars. This newfound wealth became so like obvious that the government at that time said, like, we're not going to fund your infrastructure. We're not going to fund your education anymore. Like, clearly you guys don't need any money. Like, they were rolling in money all of a sudden. It was soon realized that in the rare bout of legit investigative journalism, they're like, oh, this money is coming exclusively from the piracy trade, right? So I do a deep dive on Somali pirates, as one does.
Yes.
And the bulk of that money was coming from the durable goods taken off the ships that they were pirated, and also from ransoms being negotiated from the people working on the ships. And they take all the people back, and then they would negotiate the ransoms. See the FARC and the M19 socialist guerrillas that we talked about just on the last episode before.
You mean they had ransoms they kidnapped the people that were working on the
take the people that were working on the ships and negotiate ransoms
for them.
For them, yeah,
So
that was part of the trade. So they would pirate a ship. They bring basically everything on the ship is ours, including the people working on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, it's like the 1800s.
I know. Well, that's funny. We're gonna get there too. Yeah, I'm halfway there. Just hang on. Did you know there was a Somali pirate stock exchange?
No.
Yes, there is.
I
sent you an article.
Yeah.
And I knew that you kind of knew it because I remember I sent you an article, and I got to admit I was surprised and pretty amused when I saw that myself. So I found that article among many others, but I doubt there's like a reason why most people would know that a Somali pirate stock exchange exists. So there is something called the Harad Pirate Stock Exchange, and it divides its operations into 70 distinct maritime districts. And within those districts, and these districts are the same thing as stocks, and within each district is assigned a more or less loosely affiliated piracy group, like a pirate group controls each district.
Yeah.
And then a citizen of that area can basically invest in that district or that stock by giving them supplies or just straight up money or weapons, whatever it is. And
there's like an overarching structure that governs this.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is brilliant.
It is. It's amazing, dude. It's incredible. And so when you, as a citizen, you go like, here's some money, or here's some food, or here's clothes, whatever it is, and
AK-47s,
right?
Whatever you have.
And then if they come back with a bunch of durable goods, you get the return on your investment, and it's totally organized and it's totally worked out.
Yeah, well, it has to be, right? If they came back with the goods and they didn't give it to the people, the whole scheme would fall apart.
Exactly, exactly. It's like it's funny enough. It's actually a pretty beautiful example of the free market.
Well, they say, and I don't know shit about Somalia, but what I've heard is that since Somalia became a failed state, the average person in Somalia's life has improved a little bit.
Yes. Definitely in Harare.
This sounds... Your Swahili is getting good.
Yes, I'm practicing. And so, but then on the flip side, if you invest in a specific piracy group and they get blown away by fucking mercenaries, what happens all the time, or that's what happened in the 2013 classic Captain Phillips, then, well, your stock didn't do so well and you lost your investment. Mm-hmm. So... Going back to what you're
free market, the most
it is. It's amazing. And so going back to what you were saying about the early 1800s or whatever, this model actually directly reflects. I did some research this week. This model actually directly reflects the one used in Amsterdam for the Dutch.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find that melatonin and steal it.
I'll trade you for prednisone. How you doing? I'm ready with the podcast. Yeah, I'm in jail. I got in a fight. This model directly reflects the one used in Amsterdam for the Dutch East India Company, who sold, long time ago who sold shares and dividends to finance their voyages, which in turn would yield a lucrative return for, this is in the original like conquest days. And so this is like way long time ago. They would invest money and the ships would go out and they come back with, silk, gold, spices.
Right.
I don't know, maybe human beings against their will. I'm just kidding about that last part. That didn't happen. And then you'd get a return on the investment. And this is seen as the very first instances of a stock trade. This is the beginning of the stock market. It happened back in Amsterdam with the original colonialists. Thank you. So when you think about the whole idea, point being of all this, and the reason why I tied this all together in my head at 2 a.m. is when you think about the Somali pirate stock exchange, because if you just explain that right off the bat, someone's like, it's fucking crazy, right? It's insane. There's a Somali pirate stock exchange. And you start thinking about like, is it though? I mean, think about it. I mean, you cued into it right off the bat because we talk about the free market all the time. It's like, I'm going to give my local piracy group some guns and ammunition. You're going to go out, you capture, a Chinese cargo ship, you bring it back, and the return on my investment, they gave me, like a Toyota 4Runner or something like that. On that ship was a bunch of automobiles and electronics, things that were incredibly scarce in this area just 10 years ago, incredibly poor. And like now we're flourishing with all these goods, right? We created a market. There was a need, right? And although highly illegal, but still,
You know what, though? Take it to its logical conclusion.
Right.
You have all these competing firms, right?
Mm-hmm.
The easier it is for you to get what you're banking on is bringing back goods to give to the people that invested in you, right? The easier it is for you to get those goods and bring them back to your people, the more money you're going to make.
Exactly.
Right? If you can get to the point.
And it forces you, I have to make good on my word, because if we have made a delineation of this entire area with over 70 maritime districts, is I could get the return on my money, and I could even say, like, you know what, they made good on their investment, they lost a few guys, and you know what, I hear like the district next to us, they got some new talent that has a total knack for like kidnapping people, like I might take my investment there next time. It's fully like the free, it totally makes sense, like when you think about it.
I think that the logical conclusion is that the easier it is for you to bring back the goods, the more you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
That if you can do it,
if every business has a invested interest to be efficient.
If you can do it peacefully and eventually do it just through agreements with other people, that you're going to actually be the business that survives.
Yeah.
The business that does the best, right? It's maybe starting out with kidnapping and murder and all that stuff. But if you can just figure out a way, like, hold on a second, instead of kidnapping and stealing these goods, it would be much cheaper to just send one guy instead of a team of guys with AK-47s. They're going to die. We have to promise something to the families of these guys that get killed. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to recruit guys for piracy, right? It's kind of dangerous. As people are starting to make money in Somalia, they don't really want to send their sons out to be killed in a piracy operation.
Yeah.
Because we have to guarantee them, $10,000 if someone gets killed. Okay, instead of that, we're going to send one guy in a boat out to Saudi Arabia to come back with the goods. We just make a deal with them. So we're not actually stealing anything or kidnapping anything anymore. In fact, we send 3 guys in the boat. The other 2 guys have guns just to defend them against other pirates, right? And, this illegal, murderous aggression, non-aggression principle, if you will, operation turns into a legit business. That company is going to succeed in the end. That you take it to the logical conclusion, the more peaceful and business-oriented group is the one that's going to eventually win in this competition.
Not bad.
There's too much risk and too much inefficiency to do it in the piracy mode.
I like it.
I like it too. This is fun. Dude, we got to get into this business.
So, to wrap it up, to talk about the Somali pirate stock exchange model, right? We laid it out because if you explain that to if you just say that to someone like, do you know there's a Somali pirate stock exchange? And it's like, no. And you explain them the bare bones of it. And people go like, that's insane. But we just describe what we just did. Like,
no one could wrap their head around it.
Is it really that crazy? Because think about it. What's crazier, right? What's more insane? What's more far-fetched? That or a system that continually arbitrarily prints trillions of dollars based on nothing, the Federal Reserve, to try and adjust to a federally decided percentage rate, which is decided by the same people, and then taking that money and printing it out of thin air, investing it in something called a CDO or a collateralized debt obligation, which essentially is just a bundle of high-risk loans. And then we take that money and the bank, using fractional reserve banking, they actually don't have any money, goes to a guy who wants to buy a house. He goes like, well, we don't have any. Here's a piece of paper that you're going to pay for. We're going to take some money off the top. Here's this piece of paper that says we're going to allow you to buy a house, right? You buy that house, which you don't have the money for. We don't have the money for, but we have a piece of paper that says we're going to allow you to buy that house. And then investment companies, or maybe even that same bank that gave you that piece of paper, basically takes your loan and 1,000 others around the country and bundles it into a tranche, or an MBS, and sells it back to Wall Street and says like, all right, who feels like gambling? And they decide, well, we need to make a projection of whether all these people are going to be able to pay their loans or not. Given that there's a recession coming, are they going to be able to afford to keep this house? And where's that recession coming from? The fact that through quantitative easing, that the same people at the top, the Federal Reserve, just pumped a bunch of fucking trillions of dollars into the economy. What's a crazier system? No. That or the Somali pirate stock exchange?
Let's buy a boat.
Town on a crippled horse, got fired from a cattle drag up north. The ropes of the gallows was swinging in the breeze. All the wanted posters had pictures of me. I got Michael 45 right by my side. Oh, I'm the California kid. I hope you're quite prepared to die. Tied what was left of my horse to a hitch. Walked into a saloon they called the Busted Bitch. I ordered up a whiskey, he asked me for my bread. I paid him 2 bits and then I pumped him full of lead. I got Michael 45 right by my side. Oh, I'm the California kid, I hope you're quite prepared to die. The lady of the evening was eyeballing me, staring down from the balcony. She walked up to me with gunpowder breath. The ace of hearts was bleeding from her hip. I dragged her upstairs by her lower lip. I got Michael